A 70-year-old man in a slate blue cardigan sat at his home office desk, holding a tablet. His expression hovered between shock and a question he was not ready to form. The screen showed a DNA match result: 97.4% sibling. Beneath the number was a name he knew well: Richard Aldridge, president of Aldridge Regional Bank. John had seen that name on every statement for 30 years, the impersonal signature of the institution that held his checking account.
That's not possible.
He tapped the profile. A professional photograph loaded. The man in the dark suit could have been his mirror. Same sharp cheekbones, same light eyes, the same trimmed silver hair. John's hand shook as he zoomed in, filling the screen with a face that matched the reflection on the dark glass of the tablet.
My twin brother. The one my mother said died at birth 70 years ago. Is that really you?
The memory surfaced. His mother, Patricia, voice gentle but final. Your brother wasn't strong enough, sweetheart? God needed him. But this screen didn't care about old stories. 97.4%. Sibling match. The cruel precision of science over sentiment stared back.
He's been right there, handling my accounts for 30 years. My own twin.
The test that shattered everything had arrived, wrapped in red paper. A light-hearted gift from his grandchildren last Christmas. John laughed, held up the box, and read the label aloud. Discover your heritage.
Well, if I find out I'm part pirate, you kids get a cut of the buried treasure.
He had spat into the tube, mailed it off, and forgot about it until a notification pinged his tablet 6 weeks later. But the memory that rushed back was older. His mother, Patricia's voice, gentle and final. The day he asked about the twin brother he never met, she had smoothed his hair and said, "Your brother wasn't strong enough, sweetheart. God needed him more."
But God didn't take him. Someone else made a trade.
John pushed away from the desk, carried the tablet to the hallway mirror, and stared at his own reflection next to the screen.
Same cheekbones, same silver hair. He's me, but his signature is on my bank statements.
A ghost with a corner office and a file on every penny John ever saved. John opened a browser on his tablet and typed Richard Aldridge, Aldridge Regional Bank. The official profile appeared beside the bank's limestone facade. President for 32 years. Adopted as an infant through St. Mary's Hospital. No known siblings, no children, widower.
Adopted. No siblings. That means he doesn't know either.
John retrieved a box from the closet. 20 years of monthly statements, each one bearing the bank's seal and the same signature. Richard Aldridge's name looped across the bottom corner of every page, stamped under President, like an ownership mark.
That signature cleared my car loan, my mortgage, my retirement rollover. He's been inside my whole financial life.
John opened a new email, fingers hesitant. He typed carefully, claiming genealogical research on the Aldridge surname, and asked if they might meet.
It's a lie. But the truth would sound insane, and I need to see him first.
Within 2 hours, an assistant replied, Mr. Aldridge would be delighted. Coffee, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock at the Willow Coffee House.
Saturday? 3 days? Then I'll sit across from my twin for the first time in 70 years.
Saturday morning, John stood before the wardrobe mirror. He buttoned the slate blue cardigan, smoothed the Oxford collar, and checked his silver wristwatch.
This is just a genealogical meeting, that's what he thinks. Keep it simple.
He pocketed the tablet with the DNA results, felt its weight against his hip, and drove downtown. He arrived at the Willow Coffee House 20 minutes early. The morning light cut across the empty window chairs.
Order 2 coffees. Look busy. Don't stare at the door.
John chose a table by the window, set the cups down, and rehearsed the genealogical questions under his breath. Through the glass, he saw a man approaching. Same gait, same silver hair.
That's him. Dear God, that's him.
Richard Aldridge walked in. His dark suit contrasted with John's cardigan, but the face was a mirror. Their eyes met. The resemblance was unmistakable, but Richard's expression stayed open. He extended a hand without a flicker of recognition. They sat, 2 cups of black coffee steaming between them. Richard Aldridge's smile was the easy one of a man accustomed to greeting strangers.
I was delighted to get your email, Mr. Reeves. Genealogy's a passion, though my own file is frustratingly thin.
Call me John. I'm just tracing some local lines. The Aldridge name kept popping up in old records.
What I know is simple. I was adopted as a newborn. St. Mary's Hospital, October 12, 1955. Sealed records. Growing up, it felt like a locked door.
October 12th, 1955. John's own birthday. The same hospital where his mother had delivered him and his twin.
The only solid name I ever got was the delivering physician, Dr. Harold Finch. He died years ago, so that lead disappeared.
Finch. The doctor who told my mother one twin was stillborn, the same man who signed my birth certificate.
I even took one of those DNA tests a few years back. Not a single close relative. I figured I really was alone, stopped looking.
He doesn't know. I could tell him right now, but telling him would rewrite every page of a life he's already made peace with.
John wrapped both hands around his mug and chose silence. The truth would keep. First, he needed to understand what happened behind that locked door. The conversation turned personal. Richard's voice softened, the practiced ease of a public man giving way to something older.
My wife passed 3 years ago. We never had children. After the DNA test came back empty, I stopped looking altogether. The bank became my family. The staff, the clients. I threw myself into that building. It filled the silence.
He's built a life around an absence. I could fill it with a single sentence, but the cost of that sentence, I can't measure it yet.
They stood to leave. The handshake lasted a breath too long, two pairs of hands that didn't want to let go of the only familiar stranger in the room.
John, let's meet again for your project. Next Saturday, same time? I'd like that very much.
Yes, next Saturday. I'll have more research by then.
John watched Richard disappear around the corner, then walked to his car. The drive home blurred past, the name Harold Finch pounding in his chest.
Finch, my mother's doctor. The same man who told her one twin was stillborn. He's the lock on that door.
The thought of his mother's old shoebox hit him like a shot. Letters, photographs, a birth announcement, all tucked in his attic, waiting to be read with new eyes. John pulled down the attic ladder, the dry air smelling of old paper and dust. The shoebox sat exactly where Patricia had left it 12 years ago. He carried it to his desk, lifted the lid, and saw his mother's handwriting on a stack of envelopes. A brittle birth announcement lay on top.
All these years I left this box untouched. Now every page could be a confession.
Near the bottom, he found an envelope postmarked November 1955. The return address read Dr. H. Finch, St. Mary's Hospital. He unfolded the single sheet inside and read, "Enclosed is the agreed-upon compensation for your cooperation. The child will be placed well." John's hands trembled. Compensation. Placed. The words slid into his stomach like a key into a lock that should never have existed. And then a smaller, separate slip of hotel stationery, covered in Patricia's hurried cursive. No date. The note read, "They told me one died. I didn't ask. I needed the $500. John stared at the framed photograph of his mother on the shelf. The proud young woman who had smoothed his hair and buried a lie for 70 years.
She wasn't a grieving mother. She was a woman who took a payment and agreed to the lie. My whole life built on a sold silence.
John sat at his desk long past midnight, typing Dr. Harold Finch into the search bar. The cursor blinked, and his chest tightened. A 2014 investigative report rose to the top of the results. Long dead doctor exposed in posthumous infant placement ring. Long dead doctor exposed in posthumous infant placement ring.
A placement ring. Not one adoption, but an operation. A pipeline.
The article chronicled how Finch had built a network of paid nurses, forged birth certificates, and separated multiple sets of twins, selling infants across state lines. The ring operated at St. Mary's Hospital for over a decade, the report said. John's own birthplace was ground zero for a black market baby trade.
Our separation wasn't a hospital mistake. It was inventory management, and my mother cashed the check.
John printed the article, stapled the pages hard, and placed the stack in the shoebox beside the $500 note.
I have the whole file now, but showing it to Richard would detonate 70 years of identity. Do I have the right to pull the pin?
He closed the lid and pressed his palms flat against it. The house answered with a silence that held too many secrets. Sleep refused to come. For 3 nights, John lay in the dark, then rose and pulled the shoebox back to his desk. The letters seemed to breathe on their own. At the very bottom, under the birth announcement, he found a sealed envelope marked unsent in Patricia's hand. He slid it open and read, "I saw the other one in the nursery, red-faced and screaming. They told me he'd be gone before I woke. I've never told a soul."
She saw him. She knew he was alive, and she walked away with the money. She was a victim of that doctor too, but she had decades to correct the lie, and she chose not to.
He set the letter down and stared at the photograph of his mother. Grief and fury tangled inside him, but something else surfaced. Richard's eyes, the loneliness he'd worn like a second suit.
He deserves to know he has a brother, even if it hurts, even if it changes everything.
John picked up the phone and dialed the number on Richard's card. His voice was steady when he spoke.
Richard, this is John? I know we planned coffee, but could you come to my place Saturday? There's something I need to tell you in private.
Richard's answer was a warm "of course." John set the phone down, then gathered the letters, the article, and the DNA printout into a plain folder. Richard arrived on Saturday in a gray cashmere sweater, no suit. John opened the door and saw the face of the man who'd been a signature on his statements for 30 years. They sat in John's living room. John placed a plain folder on the coffee table and didn't open it yet, his fingers pressed flat against the cover.
Richard, I need you to let me say this all the way through. It won't make sense at first. Please just listen.
John opened the folder, hands shaking, and held up the DNA test printout. The number glowed in the afternoon light.
Over Christmas, my grandkids gave me a DNA kit. A lark. When the results came, they listed a 97.4% sibling match. The match resolved to a public profile. A face I'd seen on every bank statement for 3 decades. Your face, Richard?
Richard's expression froze. He looked from the paper to John, mouth slightly open, no words coming. John slid the 2014 news article from the folder and set it on top of the DNA printout. Dr. Harold Finch's name was circled in black ink.
We weren't just separated by accident. We were sold. My mother took $500 and agreed to the lie. I had no idea.
Richard's breath went shallow. The paper trembled in his hand. He looked up and the composed banker's expression cracked into something raw and unprocessed.
A brother? I have a brother?
Richard rose from the chair, the paper slipping from his hand. He walked to the window and stood with his back to John, shoulders tight. John stayed seated, voice low, explaining Patricia's payment, the ring, the 70-year lie. Richard's reflection in the glass stared back, hollow. Then the dam broke. Richard's shoulders started to shake, and a raw sound escaped him. Not a word, just a grief 70 years overdue.
I buried my wife alone. I thought I had no one.
John stood, crossed the room, and after a hesitation that held a lifetime, placed his hand on Richard's shoulder. Neither man breathed.
70 years apart, and the first touch is a hand on a shoulder. It's not enough, but it's a start.
Show me the DNA screen. The original. I need to see the number.
John unlocked the tablet, and the screen lit up between them. 2 mirrored faces leaned over the glow of the data.
97.4%. That's non-negotiable, isn't it?
Richard wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and sat down again, closer to John now. The distance between them collapsed.
Tell me about your life, your wife, your children. All the things I should have known.
John talked about his late wife, his 2 daughters, the grandchildren who'd given him the DNA kit as a joke. Richard listened, absorbing every detail like a man starved.
I have no children. Since my wife died, the bank has been my only family. But lately, even the building feels empty.
We could change that. Spend Saturdays together. Catch up on 70 years. No pressure, just coffee and conversation.
Richard's eyes filled again, but he nodded. a fragile and hopeful something burning through the grief. They agreed on the following Saturday. As Richard rose to leave, he paused at the door and turned back.
You know, I've been handling your accounts for years. I recognize the name, but I never imagined.
Their handshake lingered. Two identical hands, one in cashmere, one in cardigan, neither wanting to let go. John closed the door, leaned his back against it, and let out a breath that had been trapped in his chest for 70 years. Weeks blurred into a rhythm. Saturday coffees, walks under elms, dinners at quiet restaurants. John's face became Richard's favorite mirror. But late one evening, alone in his office, Richard's banker instinct pulled him toward the keyboard. He typed in John Reeves's account number like a question he hadn't asked yet.
15 years of small outflows, always late in the month, right after his pension hits. That's not a pattern, that's a strategy.
Richard followed the digital trail. The receiving account was held by a woman in the next county. A name John had never mentioned. He cross-referenced the transfer dates with overdraft notices. Each time John slipped into the red, a small charge had cleared just before.
John never questioned the fees. He just paid them, month after month, while someone else quietly took a bite of his retirement.
Richard sat back, leather creaking in the silence. The calm portrait of John's financial life had a crack, and behind it, a hidden room.
I should drop this. I'm his brother, not his auditor. But I was the signature on his statements for 30 years. I can't unsee a theft.
He printed the summary, folded the pages with precise corners, and tucked them into his breast pocket. He wouldn't confront John tonight. He needed the full landscape first.
Whoever you are, I'll find you. And when I do, I'll decide whether to tell John or make this right silently. His heart has had enough discoveries for one lifetime.
Richard pulled up the linked savings account, opened by John's wife 15 years earlier. The signature on the first deposit matched the handwriting from her Christmas card to John.
That's her handwriting. The same woman John spoke of with such tenderness at dinner last Saturday.
He traced the destination. The sister's account, opened in a credit union 40 miles away. The first transfer had been wired just 3 months after the wife added her name to the savings.
She set this up while John was still working, siphoning his pension a few dollars at a time. He never noticed.
10 years of statements, then 15. The transfers were timed to leave just enough to cover mortgage and lights, but sometimes not quite, triggering overdraft after overdraft.
Every time the account went red, John paid a fee. The sister got her cut, and John paid extra for the privilege.
The wife died 5 years ago, but the automatic transfers had never stopped. The sister had simply let them run, silent as a second heartbreak. The total, calculated quietly in the amber light of the desk lamp, was enough to have funded a modest annuity. 15 years, a few dollars at a time.
I have the evidence now. I could end this silently, close the sister's tap, refund the fees. John never needs to know his wife betrayed him.
He closed the file, slid it into his desk drawer, and turned the key. The question of what to do would sit on his chest until morning. By morning, the choice had solidified. Richard drove to the bank before sunrise, unlocked his office, and didn't turn on the overhead light.
I will not demolish his portrait of the woman he loved. He's lost too much already. This stays between me and a dead wife.
He opened John's account file and reversed every overdraft fee from the past 5 years, linked to the automatic transfers. The credits posted without alert or fanfare. From his personal checkbook, he wrote a single draft, not from the bank's reserve, but from his own savings, a number that matched the total siphoned. On the memo line, in his precise script, family adjustment. He deposited the check into John's checking account, then flagged the sister's account for internal review. No legal action, no exposure. Just a quiet end to the drain. The audit file went back into the drawer. Richard closed it and turned the key, this time with a different weight in his chest.
I'll tell him someday. When the brotherhood is older than the betrayal. Not today.
He turned off the desk lamp. The office returned to gray dawn. Somewhere across town, John Reeves' checking account held a balance larger than it had in 15 years, and he didn't know it yet. The financial wound was dressed. The secret would keep. Both brothers went about their Saturday coffee the following week as if the earth hadn't shifted twice. A month later, John sat with his checking statement and a pencil. A credit labeled Family Adjustment stopped his breath. Below it, several overdraft reversals he never requested. The date matched no explanation he could find. He called the bank, but the representative gave only a scripted answer. The adjustments had come from the president's office. He looked at the photograph of his late wife on the mantle, then at the credit line. Richard's signature was in every number. Saturday morning, under the elms, John fell into step beside Richard as they always did now, but his silence was barometric.
Richard, did you put money into my account? A credit called Family Adjustment?
Richard stopped. Your wife's sister. For 15 years, small transfers drained your savings. It forced overdrafts you never questioned.
John's face went gray. The trees around them swayed, but he was frozen, staring at the ground.
She was my wife, and you're my brother. Which betrayal hurts more?
A long silence. Then John's hoarse voice. Thank you. They walked on, heavier but closer than they'd ever been. 18 months of Saturdays had sanded the edges of two lives. The brothers moved through the seasons with a quiet ease that made the past feel like a foreign country. Then a brief health scare put Richard in a hospital bed for 2 nights. Nothing critical, but enough to sharpen his focus. A week later, he sat with his attorney and redrafted his will. One name was written into the executor line with finality: John Reeves. He invited John to his office after hours. The bank hushed and glassy. The skyline behind them was a curtain of blue and amber. Richard handed John a sealed envelope, the paper thick and deliberate. He didn't speak, just nodded for him to open it. Inside, a copy of the will and a personal letter. You were stolen from me for 70 years. I'm giving you the next chapter.
Richard, I can't.
You can. You're my only family. The bank will be fine. I need you to do this.
John's vision blurred. He held the paper with both hands, as if the ink itself could anchor him to a new truth. In a quiet bank office after hours, a brotherhood bought with $500 70 years ago was redeemed with a single signature. John left the bank, the envelope pressed inside his cardigan. The evening light tilted long across the sidewalk, the city's hum a soft companion. He passed his own front door, the brass number 14 catching the last sun. His feet didn't slow. 2 blocks further, he stopped before number 16. He had a key, but he knocked anyway. Richard opened the door. No words, just a nod that carried a year and a half of Saturdays. They stepped inside. In the living room, they sat and talked about nothing important. The next grandchild's visit, a broken gutter, the new diner on Elm. Later, John stepped back onto the porch and turned. 2 front doors stood side by side, their brass numbers warm in the twilight. He stood at the fork in the sidewalk, a man with 2 homes now. The weight of the envelope was light against his chest. For 70 years, he had walked to 1 front door. Now, twice a week, he walked to 2. He thought of his mother, the doctor, the $500 that had rewritten everything, and he decided gratitude was weightier than bitterness. Then he turned and walked toward the door that had always been his. The quiet rhythm of 2 front doors now settled into his bones. The following Saturday, Richard arrived first at the Willow Coffee House. He ordered 2 dark roasts without hesitation. When John walked in, his mug was already waiting in their usual window spot, the same chairs they'd sat in that first nerve-wracked Saturday.
You've memorized my coffee order.
Dark roast, no sugar. You only mentioned it twice.
John pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and slid it across the table. A recent photo of his grandchildren in a leaf pile, laughing. Richard studied it, the way a man studies a window into a room he was never supposed to enter.
I may not have children of my own, but I have a brother who's also a grandfather. That counts for something.
It counts for everything.
They lifted their mugs. The coffee was hot. The silence held no more secrets. and two mirrors finally faced the right direction. Outside, the elms that had watched their first walk now shaded the second chapter of two brothers who had found each other when most stories are already written. That evening, John sat alone in his home office. The dusk outside had dimmed to a deep navy. He opened the desk drawer, the one he hadn't touched in months, and lifted out the tablet. He touched the screen, and the result he'd stared at over a year ago surfaced like an old question finally answered. The words read, 97.4% sibling match, the same impossible number that had cracked his world open.
That number cost me a mother's perfect memory, and it gave me a brother.
He set the tablet aside, the screen darkening on its own. No need to look at it anymore. His gaze drifted to the shelf where his mother's photograph watched over the room.
There's no anger left, just a soft, complex understanding. You did what you had to, he whispered to the photograph. You did what you had to. I found him anyway.
Outside the window, the sky deepened to a velvet blue. The first stars pricked through. Some things finally were at rest. On the same downtown street, the violet twilight settled over two brownstone front doors. Brass numbers 14 and 16 caught the last glow from the porch lights, warm against the cooling evening. A potted fern swayed lightly between the two stoops, as if it had always belonged there. No footsteps now, just the hush of a street where two identical keys rested in one man's pocket. For 70 years, he had walked to one front door. Now, twice a week, he walks to two. The street held the silence easily, as if it too had been waiting for the second set of footprints. The numbers hung in the dark, twin emblems of a truth that no longer needed to be spoken. And somewhere inside one of those homes, a will lay signed on a desk, as quiet as the peace between two brothers. The doors waited, side by side, for Saturday morning and 2 cups of dark roast. Saturday afternoon found them on a park bench. Pigeons clustered at their feet, awaiting crumbs neither man seemed to count. One hand in a cardigan sleeve, one in cashmere. Both browned with age, both steady. 2 identical profiles against the afternoon light. Silver hair, same part, same quiet set of the jaw. A breeze stirred the elms. Their silver hair lifted at the same moment, as if sharing a single draft. They didn't speak. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of everything that no longer needed saying. Some reunions take a lifetime. This one took 2. But it came with a second set of front doors. The pigeons rose, a soft clatter of wings, and settled again. The afternoon held them in its quiet palm. Fade to black.